After that last game, it was pretty much the greatest experience I've been a part of.
It should be one fun time.
Good evening and welcome into a special playoff edition of the Crossroads Locker Room Show here on the X. My name is Greg Sherman, joined as always by the head coach of the Forest Sam Buffaloes, Jason Phillips. And Jason, for the first time in 4 years, you guys made the playoffs. So first off, congratulations and welcome to the tournament.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a good feeling to still be practicing and playing.
Is that good feeling still coming off of last week when you guys had to make not one, but 2 fourth-quarter stands against Holly? Not to lose the game because you had a 2-touchdown lead most of the second half, but you had to avoid allowing them to kick a field goal so that way they would only lose by 10 and knock you out of the playoffs.
Yeah, that was a crazy game last week. It's always strange when you're not just trying to win, but you got to win by a certain amount of points. And last week was a lot of fun. It was nerve-wracking right up until the end, but our guys did a great job.
But hey, you're in, and that's all that matters. Now the new season begins. Doesn't matter how many you win by. All it is, as the late Al Davis would say, just win, baby.
That's right. It's all there for us, and hopefully we can. We've been talking to the guys. We don't just want to make the playoffs. We want to see how long we can stay here.
And the biggest story coming in and leaving the game on Friday in Holly was injuries. You were without 3 key players, including Foster Burchett, and he had some freshmen step up. We'll get to that in a second. But first off, can you give me an injury report? Who's going to play and who's still out?
Foster Burchett and Marcus Cervantes will both be back. They had concussions a couple weeks ago, but they're both clean bill of health, and they'll both be back. Ty will still be out though with his knee.
How long? When is Ty going to be out for the rest of the playoffs, or do you think he'll get him back if you guys are able to go deep enough?
He'll be out the rest of the playoffs. I think the last said it was up to 8 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks, so he'll be out for the playoffs.
And was it like a torn ACL or what? What is it?
It didn't require surgery. It was more MCL. They thought at first that it would be his ACL, but the MRI proved that the ACL was okay. And as far as I know, it's just the MCL. Doesn't require any surgery. Just going to require some rehab and some time to heal up.
And a tough break for Ty. We obviously send our best wishes, but as difficult as playing with those players out, you had guys stepping up. Mims stepped up on defense. Toa Mau as a freshman quarterback. John and I were talking last week in the booth on top of the press box that Toa did not look like a freshman. If he was a freshman, he looked like he was about 25 years old.
Yeah, he's a big, healthy freshman. I'll tell you that. All those guys did a great job. Not just those guys, but some of our regulars. Brendan Roman had to tote the ball a little bit more than usual, and he did a great job. And from top to bottom, I was as pleased with those guys with our guys as I've ever been, just with the all-out effort, all-around effort, all 4 quarters. But Toa and Mims stepping up the way they did, that was something special, and we look for great things from them in the future.
Has that allowed you to open up the playbook a little bit? Because obviously Foster, we know what Foster can do, but because you now have a second quarterback who you probably weren't expecting to be able to be this effective right away, that maybe open up the Wildcat or open up off other formations that maybe you hadn't planned on using?
Definitely. If you watched us in practice this week, we've got we got a whole package where we got both of them back there, and we're kind of moving them around and putting them in different spots. But they're starting off both of them in the backfield, and one of them at tailback and one of them at quarterback, and then we're just going to see if we can mix it up a little bit. It's a blessing to have 2 guys like that can both throw the ball.
Jason, you read my mind. I was about to ask you, when I was out at practice on Wednesday, it looked like you were giving both Foster and Toa, I don't know if it's half the reps apiece, but it looked like both were getting pretty significant reps.
They both did. Since we've canceled our JV season, we've tried to keep those younger guys involved as much as possible, and Toa's actually getting almost about half the reps, not quite half, but he's getting close to half the reps at quarterback. And like I said, we got some play packages in there where they're both in there at the same time, so it should be exciting.
Well, what'll be exciting is breaking down this game a little bit more. The Sanford Fritch Eagles, we haven't even mentioned your opponent, the second-place team out of 1-2A Division II. We'll talk a little bit more about them coming up next. This is the playoff edition of the Crossroads Locker Room Show here on the XKXCS. Welcome back to the Crossroads Locker Room Show, Forest Sam Football Preview Edition. The Buffaloes getting ready to take on the Eagles of Sanford Fritch up here in Plainview. Once again joined by Jason Phillips. And Jason, not much serious history with any of the schools out of that District 1, 2A Division II. No previous meetings with Sanford Fritch, but taking a look at the history of the Forest Sam Buffs in the football playoffs. Appearance number 15 in the tournament, as we said, first since 2007. And that year, Forest Sam in Class A beat winners in round 1. 5-1 before losing to Valley Mills in the second round. So you can't really draw off a football playoff experience. But 2 years ago, as head coach of the baseball team, a lot of these players made it all the way to the Elite Eight before losing to Stamford. So are you able to draw anything out of that playoff run in baseball that you can use in football this year?
Just a little bit. Just the experience under the pressure is one thing that they can kind of carry over. You know, baseball and football are two totally different sports, but a lot of those guys on that team 2 years ago in baseball are still playing football this year for us, which is a good thing because it's a special group of guys. But just the pressure of playing in the playoffs in any sport is a little bit different than it is in the regular season. So it's good to have that experience, and hopefully those guys have been able to share some of that with these younger guys that haven't had this experience before.
Sanford Fritch does have the playoff experience over you. This is their fourth straight year that they've made the playoffs, but they've been 1 and done the last 3 years. They haven't won a playoff game since 2005, so Fort St. actually has more playoff success over the last few years than Fritch. But obviously Fritch is a team that you don't know too much about, so how do you scout out a team or try to game plan for a team that you really don't know much about?
We just have to totally go off the films that we trade with them from last Saturday, and it's tough because I guarantee you there's not many of their kids or many of our kids that know where either town is. You know, if you would polled our players and said, do you know where Sanford or Fritch is? And that probably none of them would have not a clue. And probably some of the coaches as well. I'm sure they don't have any idea where Fort St. is. So it's unusual going in and playing somebody that you have absolutely no idea about. We know they're big, but it's hard to tell that on film. It'll be interesting to see tonight.
Sanford Fritch, of course, straddles Borger. I've heard it pronounced both ways. They have a veteran head coach, Rick Ware, 15th season up there, so he's used to these playoffs. Sanford Fritch went 5-5 overall. They went 5-1 in their district. They went 0-4 in non-district, but they played a very stout schedule. 3A Dalhart, 1A Power Canadian, Power Stratford, I think that's 1A as well, though they didn't make the playoffs. I think Sunray as well. So they're a team that played a very, very tough non-district schedule, and they're certainly going to be ready for the playoffs.
Oh, definitely. Coach Ware, haven't known him for very long, but he's a great guy, and he seems to know his stuff, and I'm sure he's going to got those guys ready. And that's what we talked about to our guys. Their 5-5 record is a tough 5-5, and they played some great teams before district started, and their district I think was a little bit down this year compared to what it has been in the past. But anytime you got to play Abernathy and Spearman, I mean, those are two good teams year in and year out.
Just looking at the roster, they have, of course, they have all their JV calls, but they have a lot more seniors on their team than you. They're led by Tate Murray, I think, is their top player. Chris Bryan, who's their starting quarterback. Trying to look through the roster real quick. Colton Val is their running back. Just give me a little scouting report on Fritch, Jason.
Offensively, they are very similar to us. They spread it out, use lots of 3-receiver, 4-receiver sets, and they do it not really necessarily to just exclusively throw. They want to run out of it just like we do, and they're successful at it. Colton Val, number 13, he's a big, strong running back. He's real similar to Schilling from Idalou. So I mean, they're almost identical in size and stature. So it's good to see that. The quarterback is humongous. Chris Bryan, he is humongous. He's 6'4", 225, and he's a big kid. Luckily, he's not very fast to go along with that. He does have decent speed, but with both those guys back there, you got about almost 400 pounds of quarterback and running back there, and it's going to be a challenge for us, but hopefully we can utilize our speed and keep them inside and see what happens.
Where do you have advantages over Sanford Fritch?
I think our number one advantage, I think we have more team speed all the way across the board than they do. I mean, they've got some kids that can run, but I think, position by position, I think we've got more team speed than they do.
And give me a couple keys to the game, what you guys have to do in order to not be one and done and be able to get a second-round date with unbeaten Cisco.
Defensively, we got to make them throw the football. I mean, he's a decent passer, a good passer, but we want to take the ball and make them get yards on us through the air. We've got to stop the running game, and because that's what they want to do. Their bread and butter is to try to spread you out and run it, and we want to stop that run, probably the same game plan they have for us. And offensively, we just got to be able to make sure we maintain some drives, and it's going to be, our motto is to score quick, but we're going to have to get some first downs and keep their offense off the field as well.
their key defense is a 4-2-5, which means they take a linebacker off the middle and put a fifth deep player, either whether it's another corner or another safety. So how do you game plan for that, knowing that you're not just going to have 4 DBs but 5?
Well, it's real similar to what we run as well on defense. So the good thing is, it was easy this week in practice for us to imitate their offense and to imitate their defense, because we basically do the same thing on both sides of the ball. So that's been one advantage for us, and I guess it's been one advantage for them as well. But the thing about the 4-2-5 is it's real flexible against lots of different formations, and you just got to be able to use motion and use formations to try to find a weakness, and that's what we're going to try to do.
Well, coming up next, we'll hear from head coach Rick Ware of the Sanford Fritch Eagles, taking time out to talk to us tonight. But as we take you to break, let's hear from the senior players about what it means to finally make it to the playoffs. This is the Crossroads Locker Room Show on the KXCS.
That was pretty unbelievable. I mean, I didn't think it was real at first. And, our freshman quarterback stepped it up more than I thought he was going to do.
After that last game, it was pretty much the greatest experience I've been a part of. Been on the varsity since my freshman year, and finally, everything that we've been working hard for since August, it paid off, and it's just an unreal feeling.
I brought my lineman down off to the side, and I told them, I said, all you got to do is give me all you got for this next 12 minutes. And they did. We all stepped up, and we got it done.
This is just one exciting week. I mean, practice is more intense because, we're going to the playoffs, but it's my first time, and it should be one fun time.
Welcome back to the Crossroads Locker Room Show Playoff Edition. Forsan and Sanford Fritch doing battle tonight. I'm joined now by the 15th year head coach of Sanford Fritch, Mr. Rick Ware. And Coach, first off, thanks for joining us and congratulations on making it to the tournament again.
Well, appreciate it. Thanks for calling and talking with us.
And, Coach, we get to the time of the year where teams really don't know too much about each other. Coach Phillips earlier told us he wasn't that some of the players and coaches weren't even sure where Sanford Fritch was. How tough is it for you to game plan for a Forsan team that you may not know too much about?
We were able to see them play live versus Hawley. We had an open date at the end of our regular season game, so that kind of worked out for us. So, we feel like we know them probably as good as we've known anybody we played this year.
And talking about that Holly game, Forsan not only had to win it, they had to win it by 13, so it was a very interesting ball game. Plus, they had a couple guys step up on offense who were subbing for injured players. So how impressed were you by the Buffaloes last week?
No, we were very impressed. They kind of started slow, but I think that had to do, like you said, with some of the players they had. We hadn't had a lot of experience, but they really played well in the second half. They totally dominated, and they not only won, but they won by the number of points they had to, so it showed a lot of fortitude there, and I'm sure they're pretty pumped going into the playoffs.
And looking at the roster, the number one name that jumps out is Colton Valley. Saw the stats on him. They're very impressive, and all the accolades he's won. For those who don't know anything about him, could you talk about him, please?
He's our junior running back. He started for us last year as a sophomore. He was a district MVP last year as a sophomore. I think he had 1,600 yards rushing through regular season and then 2 playoff games. He's, I think, a little ahead of that right now. He's got great vision and great balance. He's not the fastest guy on the field, but he like I said, he sees the holes well and has great balance and is able to make guys miss, and pretty good receiver out of the backfield.
Could you tell me about a couple of the other key players that will have to have a big game against Forsan in order for you to get out of round one?
Quarterback, Chris Bryan, he's a senior. He missed all of last year. He had an ACL injury. He started first when he was a sophomore. He's 6'4", 225. He's got a real strong arm and is capable of throwing the ball down the field. He can make most every throw. He needs to have a good game. Receivers, we have 2 or 3 guys that probably have caught the bulk of our balls, Terry Brown being one, and Tate Murray. Both are seniors. One's a wide receiver and the other's a slot receiver. We need to be able to move the ball through the air, not just try to count on the ground games. People can kind of man up on the line and stop a running game, but it's kind of hard to stop if you can do both. So we want to try to be as multiple as we can.
Talking with Sanford Fritch head coach Rick Ware. And, Coach, you guys run a 4-2-5 defense. Very unusual to have that 5th defensive back. Just talk about that and how you guys are going to have to try to stop quarterback Foster Burchett, Brendan Roman, their running back, and all the other weapons that Forsan has.
It's similar, I think, to what Forsan runs up front. They're in a 4-man front from what we've seen with 2 inside backers. And then the other 5 people you can call defensive backs or linebackers or whatever. So sometimes we're 4 deep, sometimes we're 3 deep. So It's not exactly what TCU runs, which is, I guess, the one college team that's made that defense kind of famous or infamous, whatever you want to say. But we're fairly multiple. We can get into different coverages back there. And again, like you said, our main concern is going to be trying to maintain or contain their speed. They're one of the faster teams we've seen team-wise. Quarterback's outstanding. Running back, again, has exceptional speed. Offensive line does a good job of creating holes, and the running back has good vision and seems to find the seam and get in the open space. If he does that, we're not real fast. We're fairly quick, but we don't have the speed the Forest End has, I don't think.
Coach, last question for you in about 30 seconds. This is the 5th straight year that Fritch has made the playoffs. Forest End hasn't been in the football playoffs since 2007, so how much of an advantage will that be since your players will already know what a playoff football atmosphere will be like?
The way Forest End won on Friday, I think, was a playoff game for them, so they've already kind of experienced a sudden death type situation. So I think a lot of the kids that were on those teams obviously graduated and aren't around anymore, so I think it's year to year, so I don't think that's an advantage to us.
Coach Rick Ware of the Sanford Fritch Eagles. Coach, thank you so much for joining us, and appreciate the time, sir.
You bet.
Coming up next on the show, we'll have Jason Phillips back here, and we'll talk more about tonight's game. This is the Crossroads Locker Room Show, playoff edition on the KXCS. Welcome back to the Crossroads Locker Room Show. Greg Sherman here with the head coach Jason Phillips. Coming up at 7:30 here on the X, it is Forest End football playoffs versus Sanford Fritch from Plainview High School. Jason, while we were in the break, we were talking about the fact that several of the players on the football team played in the baseball tournament. Which players were that, and are you looking to them to be able to tell the younger players about playing in the tournament?
It's our older guys, Foster Burchett and Bryson Phillips and Patrick Robles. Those are 3 seniors, and they were all a big part of that baseball team. And Ty was as well, so he's got some experience that he can kind of pass down. And there was actually a couple of juniors, Marker Cervantes and Dalton Dawson. I can't remember if we moved him up or not for that playoff run, but a lot of those guys were around when we made our long run in the baseball playoffs, so hopefully they've been able to spread that knowledge.
The records over the last couple of years, 2 wins, then 4 wins, now 6 wins, so we see a pattern forming that the program's getting better and better. Now you are in the tournament, now you're into Bracketville, if you want to call it that. It's just a really exciting time with that. Cross country ran earlier today in the state tournament. We'll have those results coming up during the game, but it just seems like it's a great time. The band even, almost forgot about that. They finished 6th in the band competition earlier this week. Just a great time to be a Forest End Buff right now.
Yeah, it's been a fun couple weeks actually, and our kids, and this just a great school, a great community, and it all starts with our kids. We've got a great group of kids here at Forest End, and it's just fun to watch them, and it's fun to be a part of their success, especially right now.
Looking at the playoff bracket, of course, you guys are playing Fritch. The winner of this matchup will take on an undefeated Cisco team next week. We don't want to get into that yet, although if you look at the experts' predictions, I've looked at about 10 or 12 from across the state, Max Preps, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, Fox Sports Southwest. It's really 50-50. Half of them are going with Fritch, half of them are going with you guys. So at least there's at least confidence in some of these experts, especially the good ones that are picking you guys, that Forest End has a fighting chance to at least get out of round 1.
I think so. It's going to be a tough game. If like I was saying earlier, if you look at us, we're almost mirror images of each other on both sides of the ball. They're probably a little bigger than we are, and we're probably just a little bit faster than they are. So I think it's going to be a good game, real competitive game.
Little strange question for you here. The week you guys were playing Stanton a couple of weeks ago, Coahoma was off. Trey Gardner had a chance to go up and see Sanford Fritch take on Spearman. Coahoma played Spearman last night in Plainview on the same field. Have you talked to Trey at all about what he saw, because he's actually seen Sanford Fritch live?
I did. I talked to Trey this week, and he was able to give me some things that he picked up on live, and it's been actually pretty useful.
And it's always good to see 2 competitive coaches get together. We saw earlier this year when the Coahoma Forest End game was happening, we had you both in studio, and we had to get Vince Allen Solis in between you two because you two were throwing chairs at each other and then all that stuff. But that's obviously got to be a big help that your good friend Trey was able to see that, and hopefully that will pay off. But some of the other intangibles about trying to make a tournament run, what are the keys to getting through this game and also being able to keep going round after round?
The main thing is just don't get too caught up in the moment. I mean, it's exciting to be in the playoffs, but we still have a goal and a job to do, and it's a little bit more difficult in the playoffs to keep your focus, and that's what we've been working on with these guys all week. Is this is still a football game. This is still a football game that we want to go out and win, and don't get caught up in all the excitement, and we want it to be fun, but we're still going out there to win a game, and that's the main thing. Is just try to treat it as much like a district game as possible, because every district game you want to go out there and win, and every playoff game you want to go out there and win.
Does this throw off your practice schedule or timing a little bit because you have the extra day, because it is a Saturday and you played on Fridays all during the regular season? The
Saturday game is actually a benefit for us this week, because the band was gone on Monday, and it was it enabled us to turn Tuesday into Monday and Wednesday into Tuesday, and it's been real beneficial for us to be able to play on Saturday.
I thought you were getting ready to break out in the song there, Jason.
I thought about it for a second, but I better not.
Football coach, baseball coach, and he can sing an Irish jig for you. Well, coming up next, we'll be back to wrap the show. We're going to take a look at the bracket and why some of the teams that are supposed to be in Arlington may actually help out Fort Sand. This is the Crossroads Locker Room Show, playoff edition on the X, KXCS. Welcome back to the Crossroads Locker Room Show here on the X. Kickoff continuing to slowly approach. We'll have the pregame show coming up at the top of the hour from Plainview. And, Jason, looking at the bracket, Refugio is ranked number 1 in the state in 2A in the AP poll. Remember, in the AP, they take the 2 divisions and they put 1 poll out. Dave Campbell's will split it. Refugio's number 1, Idalew's number 2. Sonora has been steadily climbing. There's a lot of experts that are tied up on whether Refugio or Sonora is going to come out of one side of the bracket. They're all sold on Idalou coming out, but you've seen Sonora, you've seen Idalou. How much will have played? I can't spit it out. It is playoff time. I'm not bringing my A game. How much of a benefit will it be to have played both of those teams?
I think it's a huge benefit. Anytime that you can play 2 of the better teams in the state, you learn from it. And I think our guys learned in Sonora that we can actually play if we play well. Idalou, we didn't play well at all. And we know what to expect. And when you make to the playoffs, odds are you're going to find a good team or run into a good team really quickly.
You were talking about Fritch and Idalou, trying to compare them together. Is Fritch more like an Idalou team, maybe not quite as good, or is there a more accurate team that you guys have played or that the fans at home will be able to recognize that Fritch is like?
Fritch is really not like anybody that we've played this year. They're similar to Idalou in some aspects, probably not as fast as Idalou is on the defensive side of the ball. But, the one comparison to them and Idalou are the tailbacks. Both of the tailbacks are real similar in size and stature. But, it's hard to compare Fritch to anybody that we've played because we hadn't played many spread teams for starters, and hadn't played many teams as big as they are either.
Plainview, of course, is field turf. Big Spring played up there earlier this year. How much of an advantage is it to be able to hopefully stay on turf the rest of the way? Could be on turf in Sweetwater against Cisco if you win, and being able to avoid the grass.
I think it gives us an advantage because we're on it every day. But a lot of times when you get in the playoffs, a lot of these schools nowadays are getting to where they have turf. But anytime we can get on the turf, we like it, and we think it's an advantage for us.
And we have no idea when the last show will be. We'll be with you all the way until the end of the season, hopefully in Arlington at Jerry World. But I do want to make a slight transition to 2012, not trying to foreshadow anything, but how much has being able to play Toa, being able to play both Mims, Christopher and Michael, being able to get them out on the field and knowing already that, hey, the cupboard's not going to be bare when the seniors leave, how much of a springboard benefit will that be heading into 2012?
Oh, I think it's huge. Against Holly, we played with 9 guys that'll be back next year on offense and defense. So, I mean, it's exciting. We've got a lot of great kids coming back. This senior class is not a real big class, but those 4 guys that we have been a huge part of the success of building this program, and we'll definitely miss them. But I think the future is pretty bright around here with some of the young kids that we have coming up, and some of the experience that they've gained over the past few weeks is going to be immensely helpful going into next year.
2 years ago, before the last reclassification, when you finished your final season in Class A before next year when you go back, you were, I believe, 1 and 11, I believe, in those 2 years. 2-8 in 08 and 09. Now you're in the playoffs. Just compare the feeling back at the end of the 09 season to how you're feeling right now, Jason.
Oh, it's huge. We've come so far. The kids have worked so hard, and my assistant coaches have worked so hard to get us where we are today. And we don't want to stop. We want to continue to get better, and it's a good feeling. And hopefully with our realignment numbers, we'll be back down in 1A, playing schools more our size, and hopefully we can just continue to build on the success from this year and make it even improve on it next year.
I know you're going to say state championship in Arlington, but give me an honest answer. How far do you think you guys can go, or how far do you feel like you want to go in order to be able to call it successful?
I think our season has already been a success. With the way the last 2 weeks of district went, getting to the playoffs is a pretty amazing feat for these guys. And we told them going into Stanton that this is a playoff game. And then with the injuries we had during the Stanton game, early in that game, Holly was a playoff game, and it was just an unusual game that we had to win by 13. And so I think our season is a success already, just with the way these guys pulled through and got us to this point today. And when you make it to the playoffs, I mean, every day is a blessing, and we're just going to look to play as hard as we possibly can and practice as hard as we possibly can and see how long we can play.
Well, Jason, the clock's ticking. I know you want to get out there. You can hear the players getting ready to take the field behind us. Final thoughts on tonight's game?
Just go out, and we're going to try to have some fun and see what happens.
Well, Jason, appreciate the time. We appreciate it all season. Hopefully this will not be the last Crossroads Locker Room show, but I really definitely appreciate your time tonight and all season. Now make sure you go out there and take care of your business.
All right. Thank you, Greg. We enjoyed it.
That's head coach Jason Phillips of the Forest Sand Buffaloes. Want to thank everybody for putting the show together. Vince Allen, Solis, and Joe Murphy back in the studio. My name is Greg Sherman. Thank you so much for listening in. Time now to take you upstairs to the press box for the start of our pregame show. Here is Britt Smith and Out to the Stadium.